are officially into draft season, and I have Andrew Mott here right now, and we're here to give you 6 of the biggest sleepers heading into the 2026 NFL Draft right here on the brand new Draft Nerds Pod. Welcome to the Draft Nerds Pod. As I said, my name's Jagger. That is Andrew Mott. We're giving you 6 sleepers, kind of deep cuts. Some of these aren't so deep as we get into draft season. Like, I'm only just now getting to tape on some of these guys. So I'm excited. Andrew, we're going to kick it off with your first one. You have Emmett Johnson, running back from Nebraska, 5'11", 200 pounds, his 2025 season, 251 carries. 1,451 yards and 12 touchdowns. That's productive. Nebraska wasn't bad. They weren't terrible unless you're Dylan Raiola, who has recently left. Give us your thoughts on him. Why was he your biggest sleeper, or is he your biggest sleeper?
Yeah, I mean, he's the best guy that I think we're going to talk about here, at least in my list today. He's a player that I cut the tape on yesterday. Was kind of watching some of the All-22, watched some games versus Michigan, some games versus USC, some other teams. Kid's good, man. Kid is really good. He pops out on tape for me, has a lot of nice burst. He has a ton of acceleration, home run speed. He has a lot of wiggle in his game, kind of guy that'll make you miss, guy that's going to hit you with the juke stick, like everything in between. He has it in his repertoire. I think he's got this elite change of direction to his game that is just... It feels almost Shady McCoy-ish, like when you watch him, and that's very high praise for a guy that I think is probably not going to be a first-round pick or a second-round pick, but that's the nature of this running back class, right? Like, we don't necessarily think that this running back class is going to be elite for the most part, maybe outside of Jeremiah Love. But the biggest thing with Emmett Johnson that I feel like made the big difference for me and why I think he can be really fantasy football relevant for us is he's very underrated as a receiver. He had 46 receptions, 370 receiving yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns last year for Nebraska, 9.9% target share there at Nebraska, and he was running legitimate routes. They were lining him up out wide at times. It was just... he's being used all over the field. Now, you mentioned 5'11", 200 pounds. He's a little bit lighter, and it showed up sometimes. That smaller frame showed up when he was in pass protection. That may take him off of the football field every once in a while, and I do think he can get a little bit too creative with the jukes when he's in between the tackles. I think it gets him some happy feet sometimes, but overall a very solid player, a player that I really liked. I think at the next level, probably going to end up as like a high-end change of pace running back, probably a player who could have some upside if given a full workload. I think of player comparisons, that we've seen just this year. Guys like Chase Brown, not a guy that we projected as a bell cow, but once he was given the role, you kind of saw the production follow. And a guy like Rico Dowdle as well, like for the Carolina Panthers. I feel like he kind of looks like both of those players when he plays, and I could see the pathway being similar to those players as well.
And what you're describing too, it reminds me maybe even better than Woody Marks kind of as well, just like, because his usage at USC is a big time receiver. And as you mentioned, there's Jeremiah Love, and I think RB2 is wide open. We had Justice Haynes there for the longest time, but he made the intriguing decision to go to Georgia Tech. I don't get that at all.
I have no idea.
I have no idea why you would do that. But again, maybe he got an eval. Some of these guys get these evals and they say like, hey man, we don't think you're going to be a day 2 pick. And he's like, well, I'm going to be a day 2 pick somewhere. And then on top of that, if you were going to stay, why would you leave somewhere like Michigan? But to keep it back to Emmett Johnson, I mean, this was a productive offense, led by Dylan Raiola. They had a pretty decent tight end there. And then it was really just everything being made up in the algorithm in this offense as far as receiving work, and Emmett Johnson, a huge part of that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Emmett Johnson comes up as, if not yours, it kind of sounds like he might be it. Because again, like who's your RB2 at this point? Would it be him?
Dude, that's what I was looking at. Like yesterday as I'm watching this, I'm like, there's a lot that I like about this kid. And with Haynes out of the class and, the rest of the guys being decent, like there's a real argument where I was like, do I just move him to number 2 right now? Like, is that why? Should I just move Emmett Johnson to my number 2 running back right now? And if I'm doing that, like, this is a player that you probably would be looking at in a rookie draft in the early second round based off of just that alone. So yeah, I think this guy is going to be a guy that has a lot of range of outcomes on where people are going to draft him. And I think that's because of the ambiguousness of the running back class. But yeah, you're right. You could move him all the way up to 2. Like, almost right now, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And it comes especially in PPR, all the things that you're describing, and then just from his production profile, um, on a surface level, these are the types of players that you target. Did you happen to look at how he is on pass blocking on third down? Because that'll be a big indicator of like his draft capital and how he ends up on the field or not. Because I know some people don't like grading for pass blocking because, like, well, that doesn't score fantasy points. Yeah, but being on the field does. So that's always something I like to look at, and I'm intrigued to catch that on tape.
Yeah,
So
and I looked at that. That's one of the weaknesses actually that I have for his profile is that smaller frame, that lighter frame that he has right now. It does show up. He's kind of getting blown up by some of these bigger pass rushers at times. And so that's one thing that I looked at and I was like, yeah, he probably could get taken off of the football field a little bit more than we want to if he's not going to improve on that part of his game as he gets to the next level.
well, we'll end it on Emmett Johnson right there. We're going to move on to my first sleeper, Trinidad Chambliss, QB, Ole Miss. Now, I know on the main channel, when we had the college show, Trinidad Chambliss is a Garrett Price, my guy.
For
And
sure.
QB, for sure, he loves Trinidad Chambliss. QB, I don't, Dante Moore is obviously coming out. I think QB is fine. It's not weak. It's just we're not getting 4 first-round QBs anymore. That's just that shit doesn't happen all the time anyway. So Trinidad Chambliss enters a draft where let's say 7 QBs or 7 teams need QBs, and he had a pretty solid season. He tried to stay another year, but that was denied. They said, no, you got to get on get. So
Get
he's
your
going to go to
old
the
ass
NFL.
to the NFL, son.
Exactly. Like, I'm going to be honest. I added him to my list prior to me deep diving into him. He would still
Okay.
be on the list, but I am more lukewarm than I am on him hot. Like, obviously, he has solid mobility. We love the system that he was in with Lane Kiffin, regardless on your thoughts of Lane Kiffin. We just know that that is a productive NFL offense. My issue with him is arm strength and the ability to move the ball downfield. He's a lot of screen merchants. I don't see a lot of zip behind that football, but he does have a quick release, which is like weird. Most of the time when you see a QB with a quick release, you see the ball leave quickly too. But I'm like, man, I'm counting the revolutions on that mofo. Like I don't really quite see it sometimes. And when you think about player comps, he reminds me of a poor man's Bo Nix. I mean, and I think he's got more mobility than Bo Nix, which that could be arguable because like Bo Nix is a very mobile QB, but it's everyone described Bo Nix as a screen merchant, and I'm seeing that a lot with Trinidad Chambliss here because he really targets the outbreaking routes. A lot of this is like high school stuff where you want to get him on the move on the boot, and basically his feet are the check down at that point, and he's moving, getting receivers across from him. A lot of stuff that is a red flag for NFL production because that just simply does not work in the NFL. You have these edge rushers crashing down. Myles Garrett's going to get you 9 out of 10 times. And being able to stay in that pocket, make plays, and move through your progression is incredibly important. So I think he's a sleeper, but I expect him to be sleeping on a bench somewhere for at least a season or two, or maybe he has like the Quinn Ewers situation that we're seeing now, where it's just like we hate Tua so much that it's your time, kid. What are your thoughts
Might
on,
as well
on
go
Trinidad?
see what Quinn has.
Exactly,
Yeah, or
exactly,
the Spencer Rattler, right? Like, all right,
exactly.
Derek Carr, you're so bad that I'd rather see Spencer Rattler, and then you end up getting a season and a half of Spencer Rattler.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. I haven't really dove too deep into Trinidad Chambliss, but he kind of, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It feels like a guy that could hopefully go to a situation where he falls a little bit deeper into the NFL draft. You land somewhere where, things are just a little bit better than those teams at the top. I mean, you talk about the teams that need quarterback at the top, the Jets, the Browns, the Raiders. Like, I don't know if you really want a guy that needs development to go into any of these situations because these teams are just not great at developing quarterback. But you say, having Trinidad Chambliss go to, let's say Matthew Stafford wants to run it back another year and he goes to the
Perfect
Rams and
spot.
sits down behind Matthew Stafford for a season. Could you get a year of Chambliss after Stafford decides to hang it up or something like that. So I think that's probably somewhere where you would be more intrigued into a Trinidad Chambliss. But who knows, man? With the quarterback, a lot of the times for me, it always feels like landing spot is more important with
It's
quarterback than
everything.
anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's everything because it's like you said, man. I just don't trust certain people to develop QBs. It's. I look at, like you said, Vegas. If anything, they ruin them, man. Like Geno Smith, they wrote him off, and it took him a while, but it took him go to the Raiders to right back. I think at
They
this
stamped
point.
it return to sender. That's what they did on that.
Yeah, man. Uh, Arizona is interesting because what are they doing at QB? Because do you do you really think Kyler is going to stay there now, or do you
I
think
do.
that they're going to trade him? Because it's a Jonathan Gannon had zero aura. You were talking about someone who can't develop. Then you keep Drew Petzing, and he says, "Well, we misused Marvin Harrison Jr. for 18 weeks. 18 weeks you misused him, and then you bring that dude back." So those are like the landmine spots. I'm worried about Cleveland, landmine. Who's going to be there? Like that I don't like that at all. New Orleans. Kellen Moore I actually like, but do you want a bag of projects? It's like, cool, we have Spencer Rattler, and then we have
Well,
Tyler
I think
Shuck.
Shuck has played well enough too that they're not even going to look at another guy. They'll at least let him go another year.
Yeah, as like a bridge QB at the most. Um, I could see him.
Does Aaron Rodgers hang it up and you have to go play with Mike
I
Tomlin?
was I was actually about to say that. I see it at the Steelers. Carolina is an interesting fit because Bryce Young, it, Bryce Young has to get out that one interception early. He's like, all right, whew, shook that off. Let's play for real. But
He was dealing in the wild card with Stafford.
that's what I'm saying. It's just he looks like so bad for one quarter, and then he balls out afterwards. He's just such a confusing player that, like, Trinidad Chambliss is someone that if I'm the Panthers, like, let's bring this kid in just in case. Like Bryce Young, are we gonna get pumpkin Bryce Young this year or not? But that'll end it on him. He's someone, especially in the Origins tournament on Fast Draft. If you're getting him third, fourth round in that is to me an easy click because he's someone who could see playing time and he's a quarterback, which is a perfect time to take a little bit of a break and pay some bills. If you like me and Andrew, this is a brand new venture for us at Dynasty Nerds. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe button. We'll be with you on at least for podcast format twice a week. But me, Andrew, and Garrett are going to have you rookie breakdowns, individual videos, top 10 stuff, almost 5 days a week here. So help us out with that like, subscribe button. And if you're on the audio side, make sure to give us 5 stars. That is incredibly helpful. And then even if you're on your mobile device on YouTube, hit that hype button. All that is incredibly helpful for all of us. And we'll get back to it. Andrew, you're going to give us our first wide receiver, Eric McAllister, wide receiver, TCU, 6'3", 205, 72 receptions, 1,190 yards, 10 TDs. When you look at just size and what he's done, you're like, and if you want a helmet scout, you're like, Quentin Johnston, but I'm assuming you're going to give us more than reductive analysis.
Yeah, I mean, I not going to give Quentin Johnston. Now, that's not to say that another guy I talk about here later won't be compared to Quentin Johnston. He's just not from TCU. But look, senior, you look at the production, like you said, 1,190 yards, 10 touchdowns. That was 12th in the touchdown department in college football, 6th in the receiving yard in college football. So very productive. A guy who played at Boise State for the first 2 years of his career, 2022 and 2023, played there with Ashton Genty, was a first team All Big 12 award winner in 2025 because of the production. There are things to like about his game. And kind of like you said with Trinidad Chambliss, this is a player that the more I watched, the more I became whelmed with the player.
Yes.
It was just
Yeah.
like, okay, there was a lot on paper that got me intrigued. And now that I'm watching it with my own 2 eyes, maybe not as good as I thought he was, but there's still things that I think we can take away from it. This is a guy who has really strong hands. I think he's really good at the contested catch point. He's very solid against press coverage, and I think a lot of that is because of the size, 6'3", 205. He's tough to tackle, tough to bring down. He's constantly picking up extra yards after contact. He has good enough straight line speed where I think he can pick up these chunk plays, but I don't think he's like a home run guy. If he gets into the open field, I don't think he's going to be able to beat some of these safeties and some of these DBs at the next level because their speed is just different than college. But then I look at a bucket of weaknesses for him. I think he's a guy who's probably an average route runner. I think he had a very limited route tree when I was watching. He played mainly outside, and a lot of his stuff was digs and crossers over the middle. It wasn't
Sacrificial X stuff.
yeah, it's kind of that guy. Like he's big, we'll put him outside. He's good at the contested catch. Let's let him go do him, and then we'll let these other guys work across the middle. I think he lacks a little bit of burst, a little bit of explosion, especially in some of his change of direction in the route running. And I do, as I was digging into him, have found some off the field issues with him, which are a little bit concerning, I think, at times.
That's worse than everything you said about the route running at this point.
Yeah, there was an arrest for an aggravated assault with a weapon at one point just a couple seasons ago. So I think there's some things to pay attention to with Eric McAllister. At the end of the day, though, I'm trying to look at like NFL projection and player comparison. It's going to sound gross. I promise you, do not worry when I say these names because you can find players like this that are productive. Reminds me of Devontae Parker for the Miami Dolphins. Reminds me a little bit of him. Reminds me a little bit of like some Juwan Jennings for the San Francisco 49ers. So this is a player that I think could kind of be similar in that aspect. A guy who's probably going to be a decent outside wide receiver 2 or 3 in his NFL offense that I do think could be fantasy relevant if enough targets come his way. I don't know if he's going to be a major target earner, but Devontae Parker had some seasons there where he was fantasy relevant. We've seen Juwan Jennings be fantasy relevant as well. So I think he's going to be one of those guys. The thing that's going to make people upset is you hear those names. You're upset if you draft that guy in the first round. You're not drafting Eric McAllister in the first round. He's going to be a guy you can get in the third round or in the fourth round of your rookie drafts. And if you are getting a Juwan Jennings or a Devontae Parker in those rounds, you should feel pretty decent about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And these last couple of guys, I think, are like taxi squad heroes. These are folks that you're going to be getting on like your third or fourth pick, like fourth round pick, or you're picking him up with your offseason fab and you're hoping to be something. Because like the Devontae Parker comp, that can be something eventually. Juwan Jennings eventually can be something. And a lot of it is like he's got size. So, buddy, can you block? If you can block really well,
you can.
Any Shanahan or Sean McVay offshoot of an offense is going to want you, and there's a place for you. Can you make the big play when they ask you to? Because you got to think about some of these other guys who came out of nowhere, like Gabe Davis. You could fall into the right spot, and if you do your role correctly and grow within it, it's fine. It's just keeping your nose down, and I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Don't get arrested. That's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, that'll probably help you, on the professional level is just don't do that stuff.
Interested to dive into Eric McAllister from a personal standpoint. These aren't the types of players that I like because yes, they can develop, but these are, I think, your long shots. So, he's there. Let's put it that way. I know.
Yeah, like I said, you saw the production, right? It's 1,210. He played 12 games. I'm like, that's some production there from that kid. And then you watch it and you're like, oh, maybe not as much as I thought I'd like him.
Yeah. Next, we're gonna move to my running back, which is Damon Claiborn. This is someone who's been mentioned a lot on Twitter as someone that we need to talk about. We need to have higher. He's another one where I'm whelmed. He's a running back, and if he gets in the right spot, it could be ideal. He's 5'10", 195 pounds, red flag. His season at Wake Forest, 179 carries, 907 yards, red flag. 10 touchdowns. Receptions, only like, I have it right here. His receiving yards, 28 receptions, 140 yards, 0 touchdowns, red flag. He's got decent contact balance and good patient vision. Like he's slow to the hole and fast through. The problem with this fast through is it's not very fast, and contact balance doesn't matter a whole lot when you have 0 power. So like I see him get caught by arm tackles a little bit. I'm not in love with him, but again, with running back, we see that all the time. Believe it or not, it's running backs I don't love sometimes that make it, and the guy I like is buried somewhere, or let's say like it still shocks me Damian Martinez ended up on a roster playing somewhere.
I don't know, man. Didn't even was cut from practice squads.
That's what I'm saying. Like how bad was he compared to where he was at Miami? Because I didn't believe, like, I thought he was like a fourth or fifth round guy just because thumpers like Ramondre
Bro, my
Stevenson.
player comp for him was James Conner. Like I thought
Yeah.
he was gonna be that type of guy.
Yeah, exactly. And then he went nowhere. But like these guys like Damon Claiborn can go somewhere if the right coaching staff likes him. He has good vision. He has a lot of the prerequisites of what coaches like to not give you negative plays. The key is just like one reason again why he only has like less than 1,000 yards, is a lot of that is he's just not getting a lot of those breakaway runs. In college, you get a lot of these guys eat on them breakaway runs. They'll get a huge trunk play and that adds to their production. Not a lot of that out of them. The 10 touchdowns is relevant, but like again, a lot of running backs in college will do that because coaches are smart. We're in the red zone. Let's do what works, which is pound it in. Have you gotten any Damon Claiborne? Where are you at with him?
I haven't really dug into any of the tape on him yet. He's been a name that's been circled, for me because he is getting a little bit of buzz on the internet right now. Like I've seen on
True.
X and some of these other places, people are talking about them on Claiborne. But for me, I haven't really dug into it yet. To me, it sounds like he's going to be a player that I may not be super excited about based off of what you're saying because I
Yeah.
do like to see that home run speed. I do like to see that from my running back. And, you talked about players who can eat on free open field. That's what Emmett Johnson was for me, and it sounds like he's not that.
Yeah. That's like Chase Brown, man. Like I hated Chase Brown because I call these running backs Stevie Wonders, where he can't see, he's going to run in the back of his guard center and tackle, and then when he gets that hole, bloop, he's gone. He learned vision though. Vision is a very learned skill. Speed ain't, y'all.
Yeah, you can't you can't teach the athleticism. You can teach the other stuff.
Exactly. James Cook was another one. I'm like, I hate this dude because he can't see anything. Well, he sat for a year basically, and like, look where he's at now, leading the league in rushing. It's when you don't have, and excuse me, so it's Demond Claiborne. That's on me for mispronouncing that. Apologies there. Players like this is where like I grew as a scout and an analyst because you would fall in love with things like he's got good vision. Yeah, like the coach speak words, contact balance. But at the end of the day, what are the things that people can't coach? And that's what normally will get you higher draft capital rather than the more skill and finesse, unless it's like receiver, where receiver, I'm like, wow, this guy just runs such snappy routes and nothing matters. But even then, you'll see the Quentin Johnstons go ahead just because of size and stuff like that, which is a good transition. I'm assuming that Bryce Lance is your comp, or was your Quentin Johnson comp. Uh, North Dakota State wide receiver, 6'3", 209 pounds. His 2025 season, 51 receptions, 1,079 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He is Trey Lance's little brother. That could mean nothing. It can be the ick for you, but it is some information. So, what did you find in your Bryce Lance deep dive?
Yeah, I mean, aside from the Lance North Dakota State connection, which was initially just something that I was like, hey, that's interesting, that's cool. I mean, you have a kid here who, yes, I think looks and reminds me a little bit of Quentin Johnston. You said 6'3", 210. He plays the same way. I also kind of had a comp of Alec Pierce in his game. I think there's some Alec Pierce and some Quentin Johnston. So it looks like that doesn't necessarily excite you based off of the face, but I do think he's a player who has the size. We see sometimes with these wide receivers, I see basketball background. I don't know if he played basketball. I'm going to assume he played basketball just because I played ball and I know what that looks like, and he looked like he did it. So nice ball tracking skills, has a huge, massive catch radius. I mean, he has long arms. He looks so much bigger than I think he actually is when you list him because of the length of his arms when he's out there running. Really solid athlete, solid speed, good body control. Those long arms that I talked about, they help produce these highlight plays that he gets at the contested catch point. And the big thing, we talked about things you can't necessarily coach for the most part. This kid has a high motor. When he's not involved, when he's not the primary read, he's still running, sprinting downfield to hit a block, to try and get something downfield. So I think NFL coaches are going to see that, and they're going to be like, I want this guy on my team just because he plays hard every snap and he doesn't take any snaps off. So that's something that I thought was impressive when watching him. there's definitely going to be some concerns. You talked about some red flags with Demond Claiborn. You got the small school concerns with Bryce Lance, North Dakota State being D2. You're not necessarily playing the best competition ever. I do think he does tend to be a little bit of a body catcher at times, and that's why you
That's
hear a
what I
little
was
bit of
going
the
to
Quentin
ask you.
Johnston. You get some of the body catching, and he does have a limited route tree, kind of how I mentioned with Eric McAllister. He played outside. He was an outside guy. He didn't really, come across in the slot at all, maybe a couple of times, but really I think he's going to be another guy who's outside. I could see him being this decent wide receiver 2 or 3 in the NFL, probably a guy who has more spike week potential. We talk about fantasy, maybe a best ball guy more than anything. You're not going to want to plug him into your lineups for the most part. But like I said, Alec Pierce, Quentin Johnston, you're going to have these big games from him, and you have the pedigree. Guys in your family, your dad and your older brother, have made it to the NFL. Were they successful? Maybe not, but you could be the next one, Bryce Lance.
You said things I liked, and then I was waiting to ask the question. I'm like, does he
The body
consistently catch away from his body? Like, meaning he does, like, he attacks the football. Then we said he body catches. I was like, oh, I don't love it. This all, for me, for Bryce Lance, it all comes down to the testing, man. The combine, and I'm assuming he's probably going to be a Senior Bowl guy, or an East-West Shrine Bowl. I need to look at that list. He needs to go play against higher level competition. But if he tests well, like, look at Christian Watson, man. That's another small school guy. I've been sleeping on that guy. This is the first year. I'm like, man, if he's healthy, he's just good. Like, he's a wide receiver one if he's healthy.
He did get invited to the Senior Bowl. I just fact checked it. He's going to be at the Senior Bowl.
Okay, yeah, that'll be a huge test there. It's like, how does he handle bigger school corners and drills and whatnot? I'm sure he's going to get ripped apart or worship, depending. I feel like there's no happy medium at the Senior Bowl. Like, this guy sucked, or like, first round pick. There, look, watch out for this guy.
If he goes out and looks solid at the Senior Bowl, you're going to get every person on the internet tweeting that Bryce Lance is the biggest sleeper in the 2026 draft because he's cooking up the Senior Bowl and he's an under the radar prospect. We talked about him right now, folks. We talked about him right now. Whether we're right or wrong, I don't know, but we talked about him before he went out and did that.
Yeah. Well, people are going to talk about, again, it's a catchy name, man. Like, we work in media, we know how this works. That's always how
the narrative
stuff goes.
Trey and all of that.
Yeah. Yep. People will family scout, like, well, Trey Lance was a bust. Was like, well, Trey Lance played quarterback, so that's not really relevant to me at all. So it's like,
yeah, I actually had somebody a while back, many of draft classes ago, when Amon-Ra was coming out, and they told me Equinemius St. Brown's trash, so Amon-Ra's trash. And that didn't really work out, did it?
That's nuts, man. That's nuts to have that comp, very intrigued. We'll end Bryce Lance there. Tell us what you think in the comments of any of these guys. We'd love to hear it. Next, we're going to move to Michael Trigg, tight end from Baylor. I'm cheating because I don't think he's going to be that much of a sleeper. He's a sleeper right now. But 6'4", 240. Wow. I love that. His 2025 season, 50 receptions, 694 yards, 6 touchdowns. There's nothing I don't like about him besides maybe his blocking, because they used him as a big slot most of the time. And his route tree kind of sucks. But his feet move fast, and that matters less for tight end. Baylor just was an all right team compared to where Baylor has been at. They're not someone that we're going to be talking about in the playoffs. I don't think anytime soon, but that doesn't really matter. When you think about size and speed that I see down the field, he has modest enough production. And again, the usage, him not playing inline a lot doesn't bother me really, because tight ends are blocking less and less. Like, I faded a Rondé Gadsden, and that was pretty bad, because you know what the Chargers said? It's like, hey, why don't we just, like, you can't block well. Why don't we just not do that? Why don't you just, like, catch passes? So, like, they could do the same thing with Michael Trigg, and kind of how we mentioned with QBs, landing spot and particularly system is going to be everything for Michael Trigg. I like the pass catchers out of this very weak draft class. And Andrew, I don't know if you were still traveling and moving at this point or not when I said this, but I wouldn't be surprised in our rookie drafts if even in Superflex we have 2 to 3 tight ends go in the first round again, just because of the athletes that we have so far. Like I think Eli Stowers is great. Michael Trigg is great. Everyone already knows about Kenyon Sadiq at this point. He's another guy that is an athlete who can catch passes, a lot of slot fades in the red zone, which is a shame, but he did convert on them. Have you seen a lot of Trigg yet?
I haven't watched a ton of Trig, but I'm looking at the production right here, and it's exactly what you want to see is these spike weeks from the tight end position because
Yep.
at the college level, we're not going to get a ton of production in general from the tight end. For some reason, college quarterbacks kind of just avoid the tight end for the most part in general. I don't really know why that is. Maybe we can do some research into why
Scheme.
that
It's
is, but
scheme.
it's all just scheme for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fair. But I'm looking at it and you see the spike weeks, which tells you the talent is there. You know, if you're getting these spike weeks, the talent's there. I like it. And it's not against like bad competition either. You had ASU on the schedule, SMU, Utah, Cincinnati, Arizona. Like there's some good teams on this schedule. So definitely a player that I need to look a little bit into. And you said it, you know, you could have a couple of these guys end up getting into the first round. I think Sadiq's a lock for the first round for most people, especially in those
I mean,
tight end premium leagues.
he's probably gonna be a top 15 pick in the NFL. You know,
I mean, at this
he's
point,
locked.
probably. But I was saying it to you guys yesterday in our Draft Nerds group chat where, to me, right now, I feel really good about 6 guys in this class. And then after that, somebody goes out and has a good combine, somebody gets a good landing spot, somebody goes out and has, you know, good testing. Like, you might move up the board significantly. At this point, I don't really know because I feel like we're looking at these guys and there's things to like about them. We talked about guys like Emmett Johnson and Bryce Lance that I have things that I like, and Emmett Johnson more than, you know, others. But I said I could see Jeremy Bernard sneak into my first round because I like him that much as a wide receiver. You talk about Trigg, maybe he just sneaks into the first round because you like him that much as a tight end. I don't think it's solidified by any means at this point in time. It never really is, but this year I think more than general, you know, we're just seeing a back of the first round where it's anybody right now.
Yeah, and it keeps we got the declare date coming up here shortly. The deadline. Actually, I think if you're not in the playoffs, we've already hit that deadline, have we not?
I think so. Yeah, and we've seen that's like why we've seen guys like Emmett Johnson was unsure whether or not he was going to come back, and I was like, if Haynes doesn't come back and Johnson doesn't come back, and some of the or doesn't declare, then all of a sudden we're getting real scary over here. But yeah, I think we've passed it for the guys not in the playoffs.
Yeah, because essentially right now, some of these guys like Emmett Johnson, the tight ends, they need to be day 2 wide receivers. Like maybe let's say like round 2 guys that may slip up because like Ladd McConkey went top of the second round. He was sneaking in to the back end of first rounds. That's kind of where we're at now with this class and where I expect like Emmett Johnson to compete. Like, can you beat out, like you said, Jeremy Bernard? Like, I like Bernard for the most part. Like, Chris Brazzell, that's someone who's going to be towards like the back end. Eric Singleton is going to just Georgia Tech. I think he just said he's going to go to.
I thought Singleton decided he was going to go to Miami.
That's. He's not coming out, is my point, is here. He's like, so like, I'll care about him next year a little bit more. But yeah, that's,
we're both wrong. It's the Florida Gators. It's the Florida Gators.
Oh yeah, we're like so wrong. Yeah, Florida Gators you went to. Because I was like, that was a lateral move. Like, I don't know why you go to Florida. It's like, you know, PJ Lagway ain't there anymore, right? You know, those are the types of guys I would expect him to beat. Someone we forgot about, and he's not a sleeper, Jonah Coleman. He could be the RB2 in this class at this point, you know. But it's basically the point that we're making is that I would say Emmett Johnson, Michael Trigg, maybe Bryce Lance, depending if he has an unworldly combine. These are guys that can go anywhere from undrafted free agents that you're paying fab for to maybe they're sneaking in the top of the second back into the first. Michael Trigg, you're probably drafting with a pick. I don't think he's going to fall undrafted or something like that. But like Bryce Lance, just the range of outcomes for him is so huge because he's a small school. We don't know what he's like as far as actual testing on field. I know in North Dakota State, they don't have the tracking in their helmets like they do at like OU and Alabama, so we don't even have that on field tracking. So
It
interesting
kind of
to
feels
see.
like he would be, the Jack Besh story from last season. If you remember the Jack Besh story, where it's like he kind of came in and obviously he had some off the field narratives that helped kind of, I think, fuel some of that hype. But Jack Besh, a player that goes out to the Senior Bowl, nobody was talking about him before the Senior Bowl, has a good Senior Bowl, and then all of a sudden, when the NFL draft came around, the Raiders take a shot on him, and then people are drafting him in that mid to late second of their rookie drafts.
Yep. With the exception of being a Raider, I really believe in Jack Besh still. Like it's just his only ick for me is that he's a Raider right now. And that was the whole Pete Carroll's like, what if we had all players that play in the same area of the field, like Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, Jack Besh, like death by 1,000 slot pass catchers. It's just a wild team building. But that'll do it for us. As always, guys, like and subscribe. We're going to have videos for you almost 5 days a week. Andrew's going to give you some individual ones. I will. Garrett Price will be here. We'll have more Dynasty Nerds team. It won't always just be me and Andrew here. Yeah, guys, and make sure that you go over to the Nerd Herd and like we have our film room updated all the time. That's where we're doing a lot of stuff. I know me and Andrew, it's our first year having nerd scores. We're already getting that rookie guide set up and ready. That's going to be rolling soon. Scouting's here, so you want to be with us. As always, I'm Jagger May. That's Andrew. Love you guys. We'll see you next time.
See you later.